Good morning. First of all, let me start out by just thanking each and every one of you. This has been long, it has been tedious, and, I've watched you all, from time to time, and you have taken copious notes. And I just want to tell you that I appreciate, on behalf of my team, Mr. Fernandez and Ms. Cox, and on behalf of the state of Florida and Dave Ehrenberg, our state attorney, we appreciate your service. So thank you very much. I want to start with the whole reason we're here. And that is because of the death of this young man which was caused by him. Nouman Raja. Who was Corey Jones? Corey Jones was a young man who worked. He was a young man who played in a band called Future Presidents. He was a young man who was kind. He was a young man who, by all accounts, and you heard from Matthew Huntsberger, who had only met him in July of that year, played in a band with him, and then in October, just 3 months later, this defendant snuffs the life out of him. But I bring that up, and I bring up Matthew Huntsberger specifically, because if you recall his testimony, he told you, I had already gotten home. I was pretty much in my pajamas. I was getting ready to go to bed. It's almost 2 o'clock in the morning. Corey Jones called me and he needed help. And I left to go help him. That's who Corey Jones was. Now, you heard a lot from the defense about why this defendant shot Corey Jones. But think about what you didn't hear. That is, it is almost a deafening silence of what you didn't hear. And that is, well, why would Corey Jones want to shoot this defendant? Why? Ask yourselves that. This is a young man who is a productive member of society, working, has a family. Why would he want to shoot this defendant? That's what you haven't heard. And you know what? You're not going to hear it. Because Corey Jones had no intent to shoot that defendant that night. He had no intent to harm that defendant that night. He had no intent to kill anyone that night. I'm going to get to the facts of what we've heard over the course of these past 2 weeks. But I want you to keep in mind and ask yourselves throughout this entire process, why would Corey Jones want to kill this defendant? Especially if it went down the way this defendant wants you to believe it did. Why? Matthew Huntsberger told you, I got there, car was broken down, we were trying to figure out what was going on with it, couldn't do it, Corey was fine. He even told you we had smoked some marijuana while we were playing the gig. Road Ranger comes. I asked Miss Nicole Forrest, well, On that document that I showed you guys, the log sheet, there's no place on that log sheet for you to put, if there was some sort of confrontation with the person when the road ranger responds. But there is someone sitting back at an office who is taking copious notes. It's the dispatcher. So once that road ranger leaves Corey Jones, if that road ranger had left Corey Jones and he left because Corey Jones had become confrontational, because Corey Jones was combative, because Corey Jones was irate, because he felt threatened by him, that would have been in those dispatch notes. And what did Nicole Forrest tell you? Nothing. Nothing. So we know that this young man at no time during that night ever did he ever become confrontational or combative. He never did. Now, what the defendant is charged with here is manslaughter and attempted first-degree murder, both with a firearm. Manslaughter is different from murder, because in manslaughter, what we have to prove to you beyond a reasonable doubt is that this defendant, when he pulled up, from the time he pulled up, his behavior, his conduct was reckless. And that everything he did, he knew, or he reasonably should have known, that it would have led to the death of Corey Jones. And that's exactly what it did. You got to remember, it's 3 a.m. in the morning, between 3 and 3:15 a.m. in the morning. Now, 3 a.m., 3:15 a.m., that is totally different, ladies and gentlemen, than 3:15 p.m. Totally different. He's sitting there. While he's sitting there, he is trying to get a tow. You know, when it's that time of morning, just as people, you're cautious. You're just a little bit more cautious. You drive up to your house every single day. You drive into your driveway every single day. You get there in the afternoon, 5 o'clock. You're not necessarily looking around, see if anybody's gonna approach you, try to attack you before you get into your garage. But you pull up to your driveway at 3 o'clock in the morning. You pull up your driveway at 4 o'clock in the morning when it's dark. And we all know ain't nothing good happening after midnight. We all know that. So even when we do what we normally do, just as creatures of habit, and that is simply going home. You get out of your car 3 o'clock in the morning at your own house, you might look around, you might grab your purse a little bit, but you're gonna hurry inside. That's what Corey Jones was faced with that night. You gotta think of the time, because all of that matters. The time matters. Please don't disregard that. So as he's sitting there, he's on the phone with roadside assistance. And then what we know happens is we know that this defendant, he comes pulling up. And he pulls up. As he's pulling up, what we know happens from the roadside assistance call is that Corey Jones gets distracted, because Corey Jones at that point is thinking, well, who is this? Matthew Huntsberger, I called him and he came and he left. The road ranger we called, he came and he left. Those people I know, I was expecting. Who is this riding up towards me in a white unmarked van at 3 o'clock in the morning? And I'm on the phone with roadside assistance, so I know it's not someone that AT&T roadside assistance has sent, because I'm on the phone with them. So what does Corey Jones do? Well, we know from that roadside assistance call, Ms. Tolliver told you, I was on the phone with him. We even hear her. As she's getting his information, she asks him, the last sentence she asks him before he does not respond anymore is, can you give me some landmarks? She's trying to pinpoint where he is. Then that's when you hear the door chiming. When you hear that door chime, well, at that point, you know, here he comes. The person who was sworn to protect him, the person who was sworn to serve, is the very same person who Corey Jones needed protection from that night. He pulls up. Ms. Tolliver is asking, can you give me a landmark? We hear the door chime. I'm going to play it for you again one more time. And I don't mean to belabor it, guys. I really don't. But it's so important. And I want you to listen, because when you listen to it, what you're going to hear, you're going to hear Corey's voice. And you're going to hear how calm he is when he's providing Madeline Tolliver the information that he needs to try to get a tow. You're going to hear how calm he is. After he's just dealt with Matt Huntsberger trying to put oil in it, after he's just met with the road ranger who couldn't fix it, Corey Jones is still calm. So I want you to listen, just listen to his voice. And then as you're listening to it, we know that Corey Jones says, huh? So we know, we never contested that. We never ever contested the fact that this defendant says something to him prior to Corey Jones saying, huh? Because you don't say, huh, unless somebody has said something to you. So we know that, we never contested that. But I want you to listen to when Corey says, yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Now, you may hear this defendant when Mr. Piazza, the defense's expert witness they call the sound guy, you may hear him say something. I don't know what it was. He said it was like 4 syllables. You know, you guys are the judges of the facts. So you give whatever weight to that testimony you deem appropriate, okay, and what you believe you hear. We know he said something, though. But what I want you to listen to is I want you to listen to how it escalates. I want you to hear how this defendant's voice escalates to this young man who is saying, I'm okay, I'm good. Yeah, I'm good. Really? Yeah, I'm good. Really? Then it escalates. Then you hear Corey Jones tell him, who was the law enforcement officer, hold on. Now, when you listen to this again, ask yourselves those questions. Who is the one who is escalating this entire situation? Who is the one provoking who? It's not Corey Jones. It's not him. Can we cue up the roadside assistance call, please?
Thank you for calling AT&T website assistance. This is Maddie. May I have your mobile number that assist you?
561-573-2815.
Okay, give me 1 moment to pull up the account. And what's the name on it?
Corey Jones.
Yeah, D. Delray details.
Yes.
Alrighty. And what can I get for you tonight?
I need to get a tow. I'm on the road down.
And is this mobile number with the vehicle?
Yes.
Okay. What's wrong with the vehicle?
We won't start.
Okay. And is it a 4-wheel drive?
I think we will.
What's the address of the vehicle location?
I'm off the PGA southbound exit. 195.
On 95.
I-95 exit PGA southbound.
Okay, is there any, hold on, right, southbound down. Is there any buildings, landmarks, anything like that I could use to pinpoint your address?
Here he comes.
I'm good. I'm good. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Where's Joshua?
There really are no words. How do you go from, are you okay? Hey man, can I help you? Which is what he claims he said. To get your, and pardon my language, I'm gonna say what he says, not how I normally speak. Get your fucking hands up. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. What did Corey do? Think back to his walkthrough statement. What he told law enforcement happened when he got there. What did he say? Because this is where the recklessness is. Like I told you, manslaughter is different. He pulls up. He's in an unmarked vehicle. He gets out of the van. He says, well, I got out of the van because I thought it was an abandoned vehicle, but when I pulled up, the door popped open. So then he stops his vehicle. Well, the door popped open. So if the door popped open, then why didn't you just grab your vest? And you guys have seen photos. I'll show you again. You guys have seen photos of where the vest was, just lying down there on the floor, as though he didn't need it. So why? He gets out of the van with nothing on, absolutely nothing, indicating that he's a police officer. What we do know from his walkthrough statement is that he had a wallet badge. And that's just a wallet with his badge in it. And we know that he did use that wallet badge that night, earlier that night. Because in his walkthrough statement, he said that, when he first started the detail, he went to the aisles, and as he was in the aisles, he was going through, and he saw a man walking a dog, and what he did was, the man kind of looked concerned, so he immediately pulled out the badge. He even demonstrates this in his walkthrough, that he immediately pulled out the badge, held it up, and said, "Hey, man, police." So what we know is that we hear the door chimes. So we know that Corey Jones is getting out of the car before he even stops. So he could have threw that vest on, even if he didn't throw the vest on, when he popped out, because Mr. Piazza says you got 6.3 seconds between what we know is the defendant's voice and the point where Corey Jones says, "Huh." So those 6.3 seconds, how about you pull out your badge? Why don't you pull out your wallet badge? You've already done everything wrong from the jump. Everything. From the time he was supposed to be headed to the Lux, think back through his walkthrough, he said that he was headed to the Lux because he heard over the radio that there was a disturbance at the Lux. And he had the riot gear in the back of the vehicle. Sergeant Anderson said over the radio, "Hey, I need some officers." He was headed there. What does he do? It was this young man's unfortunate fate that as he's driving eastbound on PGA, he looks over to his left and he sees Corey Jones's car stranded. So now, this defendant, who was a police officer at the time, he is supposed to be going to the Lux to assist other officers with what we know is already a disturbance in progress, to take the riot gear. But he completely abandons that duty and decides, you know what? Go over here and see what's going on with this car. Now, he didn't see anybody standing outside that car waving, "Hey, I need some help." He didn't see two people outside of that car, maybe in a commotion. He just decides to go over there. He makes this U-turn, starts to go up, back up PGA, going west, and go up the wrong side of the ramp. He's already started, he's already engaged in reckless behavior. Gets out, nothing on, claims he says what he says, but the timing is too quick. If you think about it, the timing is too quick for him to have said, "Hey man, police, can I help you?" And then what Corey said. And then you hear him say, "Get your effing hands up" 3 times. It didn't happen. It didn't happen the way he wants you to believe it happened. And the reason you would have to almost twist your mind in a pretzel to try to get yourself to believe that it happened that way is because it's not the truth. It's not the truth. Corey Jones did not jump out of that car and immediately just point a gun at him. That's what he said in his walkthrough. He says, "I stood here and I said, 'Hey man, police, can I help you?' And then he jumped back like this, and I saw that gun. That gun was raised right at the top level of the car." Does that make sense? When Corey Jones is the one saying, "Hold on." Corey Jones never knew he was a police officer. Never knew he was a police officer. Then you ask yourselves, there are 3 shots fired. 3 shots. And what we know is that from all of the measurements, and I'm not going to get into all that because you guys were taking copious notes and I know you have them, What we do know, with those 3 shots fired, we know that Corey is already gone. We know that Corey Jones is already gone. The defense's own expert, Mr. LaForte, he even conceded that. He said, well, yeah, I mean, he was at least 30 feet. He was behind the vehicle. He was behind the vehicle. Corey Jones was already gone. Already gone when he's firing those first set of 3 shots. Already running. And you saw the way that that picture of the phone was just lying on the floorboard of the car. When Corey said, hold on, and he saw that this man was not going to hold on, Corey Jones took off running. And that's why you have that phone at that location just lying there. Because he dropped it and he took off running. So you ask yourselves, well, if he's running, then why is this defendant 10 seconds later? What is he doing? Why is he gearing up? And like he told you in his walkthrough, to get ready to say, aim. Where is the imminent threat to him, the defendant, of death or great bodily harm, when Corey Jones is gone? And this man has enough time to position himself in a shooting stance and go through aim in his mind. Set his sight on a target as though he's at the range, shooting at a target, or if he's hunting. 10 seconds. This is the phone. You guys remember seeing a picture of that phone right there. He dropped that phone. And Ms. Tolliver told you, I was hoping he was going to come back, but he never did. And thank God, she never disconnected the phone line. Because we know the truth. Thank God she did not decide to just hang up that phone after she asked Corey Jones the question, can you give me a landmark? And she didn't get a response. Because he wants to tell you that, well, you know, I gave him commands, The commands you gave him, he wants you all to believe that he sees him doing this. He sees him doing this. This is what he says in his walkthrough. He sees him doing this. Right there in between the car. And he wants you all to believe that while he sees him doing that, he's still saying, get your effing hands up 3 times. The two don't go together. You either see the gun and you're just going to shoot because you claim you see this red laser, so you're just going to shoot. He was a trained law enforcement officer. If he is looking at a laser and he sees Corey Jones like this, he is just going to shoot. And he places Corey Jones right in between his door. He places Corey Jones right in the vicinity here. If this is the car, I'm standing here. I'm Corey Jones. This is where he places Corey Jones, right in between them. When he claims that he sees that gun go raised above the door level. He also told you in the walkthrough that he teaches firearms. ask yourselves, this is a trained officer, teaches firearms, all this stuff, but yet Corey Jones pulls the gun right there, and it's not a headshot? That would have been a headshot. He wouldn't have missed. He was too close. There's no way he would have missed. And the reason why that doesn't make sense, and he didn't shoot there, because I want you to recall the walkthrough, because Sergeant Karpinski, when he testified, remember I asked him, I said, well, did you know any inconsistencies in his walkthrough statement and his, well, I didn't know until we got the roadside assistance call, which we didn't know existed. So he noticed several inconsistencies that just did not match up with the defendant's statement. But remember during the walkthrough when Sergeant Karpinski, towards the end, he asked him, he said, well, because Sergeant Karpinski is standing like this, and he looks back up where the vehicles are. And he says, well, you said that he pointed the gun at you up there? And the defendant says, yeah. And Sergeant Karpinski says, well, why didn't you shoot him up there? Why didn't you shoot him up there? Because Sergeant Karpinski is thinking, if he's in between that doorway, you claim you saw a red laser, that's a headshot, man. It didn't make sense to Sergeant Karpinski then. And at that time, he didn't even know the roadside assistance call existed. Didn't make sense because it's not the truth. So you ask yourselves about those 10 seconds. What is he doing? He's lining them up again. Corey's already gone. Already gone. Already gone. This man had multiple opportunities to make himself known as a police officer. As a matter of fact, when he pulled up and he saw that car door pop open and he realized that it was not abandoned, guess what he could have done? He could have continued to drive on. He could have continued to head where he was going, which was supposed to be to the Lux to assist his fellow officers. When he realized that the car was occupied, he could have continued to move on, but he didn't. So he had every opportunity to avoid what happened, and he didn't. And he needs to be held accountable for that. I don't care if he is a police officer, if he was a police officer at the time. It's just like any profession, whether it's a lawyer, doctor, when you make wrong decisions, I don't care what you do. When you make wrong decisions, you don't get a pass. What you get is to be held accountable. And that's what we're asking you guys to do here today. Don't give him a pass because he was a law enforcement officer at the time. So you think about everything, and I keep harping on this because this is where the reckless behavior is. This is where the course of conduct that he knew or should have known was going to lead to Corey's death. Now, did Corey have a gun? Yeah, he did. He did have a gun. Legally, rightfully, he did. But did he have it pointed at the defendant? And that's the question. Did he ever have that gun pointed at the defendant that would have justified the defendant shooting him? And the answer to that, ladies and gentlemen, is no. By this defendant's own words. When I directed your attention to Corey saying, hold on, the reason why that's so important, as I said before, is because it shows that the defendant is the aggressor. The defendant is the person who is provoking this. Remember the example I gave you guys in jury selection where I said, look, landlord, tenant. Tenant likes to play whack-a-mole. So what he does is digs all these holes in his backyard. Then he decides one day, you know what, I'm gonna go and jump in the hole myself. He gets injured. Then he tells the landlord, it's your fault. You gotta pay. You need to be held accountable. I know I dug these holes, but it's on your property. So you gotta pay. The defendant dug this hole. He dug the hole, not Corey Jones. And he does not get to come in here and tell you guys that he is not guilty or that he is innocent because he decided to jump in the hole. And then turn around and blame it on Corey. Now he told you that he saw the gun. Now where Corey actually dropped this gun, only the defendant knows. Only the defendant knows where Corey Jones actually dropped that gun. Because if you listen to what Sergeant Sprague said, yeah, you know, we were talking and you know, he told me, he said, you know, I saw him drop the gun somewhere up in here, somewhere, you know, up in this area behind the vehicle. So this defendant knew that Corey Jones had already dropped the gun. It was never pointed at him. But in addition to it never having been pointed at him, he knew that he had already dropped it. Because guess what? He told Sergeant Sprague before the canines even got there to locate the gun, where it was. Because he saw it. He saw it. He knew where the gun was. And you take a look at that gun, that picture that I showed you. You imagine Corey, this gun is found this gun is found right here. Now remember, CSI investigator Thomas told us before they touch any evidence, they photographed the scene. You guys even saw a crime scene video where they kind of videotaped everything before they touched anything. So before they turn items over to photograph them and do any movement of any evidence, they photographed the scene just as it was when they arrived. So when we look at these photographs, and you look at this gun, look at this gun. This gun is buried underneath some vegetation. Does that gun look as though it is in someone's hand and Corey Jones is running for his life because he's been chased and shot at, drops the gun? Does that look like it's going to be dropped in a position where it's going to be buried all underneath this
barrel is all down here. The grass is covering the river. It's buried.
So, he's the only one that knows where that gun actually was. That's why he was able to tell Sergeant Sprague it was somewhere behind the vehicle. Because he put it there. But you're the judges of the facts and the evidence, and you make the determination what you think about that gun and how it looks. Because ask yourselves this. After he fires his sixth shot, that third one, boom. That fourth one, boom. That fifth one, that sixth one, boom. Okay. Is he gonna help him? Is he going to render aid? What does he do? 33 seconds passes. 33. And I'm going to take up some of my time here. The judge is giving me an hour. But you know what? This is so important. I'm going to use 33 seconds of my time because I want you all to see. Because when you're not paying attention to time, you know, it really is no consequence. We're all like that. But when you got to pay attention to it in this case, I want you to see how long 33 seconds is. Can we cue up 33 seconds? Start. What is he doing? Time. What was he doing? And remember when Mr. Noss, the 911 operator, came in here, and Mr. Noss said to you, you heard actually the 911 call. And I'm going to play that for you in a minute. And you hear Mr. Noss asks the defendant, "Are you at your van? You got your radio?" He says, "No, I'm not at my van yet. I'm not at my van yet." So in addition to the 33 seconds, when he finally does call 911, he is still not at his van. So what is he doing? Tell you what he's doing. He's getting it together. Because he's already jumped in the hole, injured himself. So he's getting it together. That's what he's doing. And I know we don't want to think that happens. I know that we don't want to think that professionals will do things like this, but ladies and gentlemen, it happens every day. It's unfortunate, but it does. And no one, including me, is above the law. So when he finally does get to the vehicle, he's 33 seconds has gone by. Actually, a little bit more. He does nothing to render aid to Corey Jones. And he knew that he was down. He knew that he was down. He knew that he was hit, and he knew that he was down. Can we cue up the 911 call, please?
Stop that fucking gun right now!
911.
This is got one guy, I just shot one person. I'm at that offset right behind those two, Blacktail.
You're behind the double train?
I'm on the offense. Now you got to stop on offense. Offense, OC, I am not coming to anything right now. And let me see this. I got one down. I got one man down.
Roger, you all right?
Yeah, man, I'm good.
Drop it out. On the off ramp, right?
On the offense, let me see this. I'm going to contact with my leaders.
You got it, buddy. You want your radio? Where's your radio, Raj?
My radio's in the van right now. I'll have it with me. All right, that's on the phone.
All right, stay on the phone, buddy. What's the guy look like?
Black, they were all black dress, had a silver hand under his right hand. I came out, I saw him come out with a handgun, I gave him commands, I identified myself, and he turned, pointed the gun at me, started running, I shot him. I lost contact 55 to 28 on the SUV.
Go ahead.
There's going to be a 428 or 286 Papa Romeo Hotel, 286 TR8.
Don't know yet. Spike, put that out now. It's a 08 Hyundai Pop 286 Papa Romeo Hotel.
Yes, 286.
It's coming back on a four-door Hyundai gray.
Yeah, SUV.
Yeah, it's out of Lake Worth. It's not stolen or anything.
All right, man.
All right, stay on the phone. Where's the van at? Where's your van at? In the parking lot?
No, right on the offense. You'll see my van right there. I'm walking back to my van. I'm back to my van in the car.
All right.
He said at least 3 to 4 times.
All right, you got your radio now?
No, hold on, not yet.
All right, I got units coming.
All right, man, thank you.
All right, stay on the phone, all right, buddy?
Okay. All right.
Now, when you call 911, we've all heard phone calls of 911. We've watched television shows. We know that what happens is 911 operator says, 911, may I help you? What does this defendant do? Self-preservation mode again. In the hole. Wants to hold Corey Jones responsible. So as soon as he knows that he is on a recorded line, now he knows at this point he is on a recorded line. So that's when he starts to go into this whole, drop the fucking gun right now, as though he is still in pursuit of the threat. Who does that? He didn't even give the operator a chance to say 911 before he starts staging. But then he immediately says, I got one down. Well then why in the heck are you saying drop the gun right now? You know you got one down. Why are you saying drop the gun? And then he says it again. Yeah, man, I'm good. Drop the gun. Let me just say that again. Because he's staging. Let me make this look real. Let me make this sound believable. Let me say it one more time. He is staging, he is pretending, he is lying. Then he goes on to say, he's hit at least 3 to 4 times. Well, I tell you what. Remember Dr. Trumpeter, who came in here and talked about perception distortion, talked about impaired memory, talked about all this science behind officer-involved shootings and what happens when an officer is faced with a traumatic event like that, time and space and all that stuff, it just sort of, it just gets blurred. They don't really know. Well, for someone who, I guess they called him because they want you all to believe that's what he was suffering from. But the evidence tells you, no, he wasn't. Because he tells the 911 operator he's hit 3 to 4 times. And guess what? Corey Jones was hit 3 times. Nothing distorted about that. Nothing. There's no perception distortion going on here. And then I want you to think back to, since we're on Trump, I want you to think back to what he said when he was giving his walkthrough statement. All the things he said. When he was asked the question, how many times did you fire your gun? 5, maybe 6. He fired that gun 6 times. There's no perception distortion. There's no impaired memory. I know I hit him 3 to 4 times. He knew exactly what he had done to Corey Jones. So when you listen to that 911 call, think to yourselves, why is he trying to explain to the operator? Yeah, I told him, I gave him commands. Black male wearing all black, dreads, had a silver handgun in his right hand, came out. I saw him come out with a handgun. I gave him commands. I identified myself, and he turned, pointed the gun at me, and started running. I shot him. He turned, pointed the gun at me, and started running. So where's the threat? Because we know that he was chasing Corey Jones. And why did he feel the need to tell that to the 911 operator? Because he's staging. He's already setting it up. He knows that what he has done is not justifiable. So he has to stage it. And he starts to do that from the very beginning. Now, we know that Corey Jones has run away. We know he's gone. We know that he's hit here, and he's hit in that elbow. And we know that both of those shots are from the rear. And we know, based on what Dr. Juice told us, and even based on what Dr. Nelson told us, that they're shots from the rear, they're from the back. That's consistent with someone running away and being shot in the back of the arms. So ask yourselves, when he is trying to claim self-defense, where he has to prove, where is the threat? You have to ask yourselves, where is the imminent threat of death or great bodily harm? When you are the person chasing what you are claiming the threat is. There is no imminence. Everything that defendant did is in complete contradiction to every letter that makes up the word imminent. Everything he did. There is no imminence. So he's shot back here, and he is, at that point, his arms, hands, useless. You heard the testimony. Then he sustains the gunshot wound to that right side of his chest. And we know that's the shot that killed him, that blew out his heart. Now, you heard expert testimony from both sides. You heard from Dr. Juice, and you heard from Dr. Nelson. And Dr. Nelson, why he was so hostile yesterday, I have no idea. But just ask yourselves, Could he have run those 123 feet, 41 yards? Could he have been shot in that first set of volley of 3? Or is it more consistent with the kill shot being in the second volley? Well, this is the thing. It doesn't matter who you all decide you want to believe. The judge gave you guys an instruction on experts and their opinions, and you can believe whatever you want. It is not going to hurt our feelings if you don't believe Dr. Juice. It really won't. If you believe Dr. Nelson, and if you believe that, because of all this literature out here, that, Adrian, I'm telling you right now, that shot to the heart, I know it blew his heart open and everything, and I know you showed me that nice diagram of the hole in the heart, but I do kind of believe that he may have been able to run those 41 yards. You can believe that. It's okay. But it doesn't absolve him of guilt. He's still guilty. Because if you believe that first shot, that kill shot, came within that first group of 3, then that's all of the reckless conduct. That's all of the reckless behavior. That's the culpable negligence that the judge defined for you guys. Everything that he did, that he knew or should have known, would have led to the death of Corey Jones. So even if you believe Dr. Nelson, he's still guilty of manslaughter. Still guilty of manslaughter. You can believe Dr. Nelson. You can believe that he could have run here, there, everywhere. He could have run 123 feet. He could have run half the length of a football field almost. You can believe that. It is absolutely okay. But guess what? The other side of that equation is you got count 2, which is the attempted first-degree murder. And you got those last 3 shots. So if you believe Dr. Nelson, and you believe the literature and everything, and you think that, well, maybe he could have made it. This defendant, he didn't get a pass for those last 3 shots. You assess every single time he pulls that trigger. Every single time he pulls that trigger, you assess his conduct. You assess, is there an imminent threat? Is there an imminent threat of death or great bodily harm to him when he's firing those last 3 shots? Is there an imminent threat of death or great bodily harm to him when he fires those last 3 shots? And what we do know from the evidence, absolutely not. Because Corey Jones was already in the tree. He was already in the tree line. He was already in the tree line. And the reason that you know, and you can trust your gut beyond a reasonable doubt, because the last 3 shots are so deliberate and so methodical and so controlled. Like I said earlier, it's as though he's just at the range practicing, or he's hunting, he's lining up his sight. Boom. 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 Now, if none of those 3 hit him, then guess what? Because if he sustained all 3 shots in the first set of 3, those last 3, attempted first-degree murder. Because at that point, his state of mind has changed. There is no imminent threat of death or great bodily harm. Corey's gone. And he cannot get a pass for the last 3 shots. And that is attempted first-degree murder all day, every day. And the manslaughter, I told you guys, is separate. You got to evaluate his conduct. You got to evaluate every single thing that he did from the time he looks over to his left and he sees Corey Jones's vehicle. Now, there was some testimony about, well, why would he waste the time to put the vest on? It'll take, the vest weighs 23 to 30 pounds. It's a police vest. You're supposed to have it. Why would he waste the time to go north up 95 all the way to Donald Ross Road just to make a U-turn and come back down? Because that's the proper thing to do. Because, ask yourselves, what was the urgency to get to Corey Jones's vehicle? Why was he so urgent? Why was he so anxious to get to that vehicle? To the point where he just abandons his fellow officers. So I don't want you to, and I implore you, I'm begging you, please, don't conflate the two, because they're different. And like I said, with the experts, you guys are the judges. You determine who you feel is the most credible, who you believe. But either way, he's guilty of both counts. So, I want to talk to you about, I pulled out some things here and there about his walkthrough video, because his walkthrough video is 52 minutes long, so I don't want to play that again for you. If you need to hear it, though, you can hear it. You can ask the judge when you guys start to deliberate, and if you need to hear it again, you can hear it again. But I want you to think about some of the things that he said in his walkthrough video that makes him, that proves the manslaughter, the reckless behavior, the course of conduct, the things that he knew or should have known. He said in his walkthrough, he said, I was on this plainclothes detail, and if I needed, I was not supposed to do any takedowns. If I saw a suspicious vehicle, if I saw a suspicious person, if I saw a burglary, I was supposed to radio for a marked unit or backup unit, and I was supposed to have them come, and when they got there, then I throw my vest on, and then I would get out and assist. And that's what he said. He wasn't supposed. So everything that he did when he approached Corey Jones, he was not supposed to do. And Sergeant Garcia told you that. Remember him? Sergeant Garcia told you what the plainclothes detail was. They were supposed to wear their tactical vests, that they were going to, make a traffic stop, or they were going to encounter anybody. He knew what it was. He knew what the instructions were. Sergeant Sprague, when he got there, this is how concerned Sergeant Sprague was. Sergeant Sprague was so concerned that when he got there, Sergeant Sprague said, I asked him, you had your vest on, right? And he said the defendant didn't answer. And then he said, I looked at him again and I said, you had your vest on, emphasis on right? And he said no. He had nothing on. Nothing. What he did have on was that badge in his back pocket that he felt, I'll show the guy in the aisles my badge. But I'm not going to give that same respect to Corey. Because he didn't pull it out. When he had those 6.3 seconds, when he saw, even before that, when he saw that door pop open,
he never pulled that badge out. He never gave Corey the level of respect that he gave the man walking the dog in the aisles. He felt the need to pull out his badge then and say, hey, I'm police, it's okay. Never gave Corey that respect. Never.
So those are some of the things that I want you to pay attention to.
What he was not supposed to do and what he was supposed to do as a law enforcement officer working that plainclothes detail.
Judge gave you guys an instruction, and that instruction have the Elmo up, Dan, please. You know, there's an old saying, when people show you who they are, believe them. We've all heard it. October 18th, 2015, between 3 and 3:15 a.m. Get your effing hands up 3 times. Hold on. 6 shots. He showed you who he was. He showed you who he is on October 18, 2015. Believe him. He has lied from the time he called 911. He lied through his walkthrough. He lied on the. He has lied from every point in time he has discussed this. He has done nothing but lie. He has no regard for the truth. And that same disregard that he has for the truth is the same disregard that he had for him. Looking at the justifiable use of deadly force instruction, and I have it highlighted here where it says, and this is part of the instruction, because, well, let me just read it first. However, the use or threatened use of deadly force is not justified if you find that Nouman Raja used force or the threat of force to initially provoke the use or threatened use of force against himself. So what this is saying before we get to 1 and 2 is that you cannot, the law does not allow you to provoke the use of force and then turn around and say, but even though I provoked it and I killed you, you're still accountable. You're still responsible for your own death, even though I provoked it. The law does not allow that. Number 1, the threat of force asserted toward the defendant was so great. Well, let me go back here. Unless the threat of force asserted toward the defendant was so great that he reasonably believed
that he was in imminent danger of death or great bodily harm and had exhausted every reasonable means to escape the danger other than using deadly force on Corey Jones. Now, why is this important?
10 minutes,
Because-
counsel.
Because up here, if you said where it says reasonably believe that he was in imminent danger of death or great bodily harm, there was no imminence. There was no imminent danger of death or great bodily harm. And then here, and had exhausted every reasonable means to escape the danger. Did he exhaust every reasonable means to escape the danger? No, he did not. Because he chased Corey. This is the law. And we all ask you guys, the judge especially asks you guys, you might not like it. The judge himself even said, you know, there are some laws I don't like. But I gotta follow them. We all gotta follow the law, period. And the defendant is no different. So did he exhaust every reasonable means to escape the danger? No, he didn't, because he chased what he wants to claim is the danger, or was the danger. Or, in good faith, Nouman withdrew from physical contact with Corey Jones and clearly indicated to Corey Jones that he wanted to withdraw and stop the use or threatened use of deadly force, but Corey Jones continued or resumed the threatened use of force. He never withdrew from physical contact with Corey Jones. Never clearly indicated to Corey Jones that he wanted to withdraw and stop. You know when he did that? After he had shot and killed him. After he hunted him down like a deer or an animal and killed him. So if you believe that he falls, that his behavior, his conduct falls in this right here, which it is our position that it absolutely does, he is not entitled to self-defense because it was not self-defense.
Now, I spoke to you about manslaughter already, so I won't go into that anymore. You guys have the instructions. The course of conduct, like I said before, and I won't keep repeating myself, is everything that led up to it. Everything that led up to the death of Corey Jones. Everything that he knew or he reasonably should have known by not doing the things that he should have done led to the death of Corey Jones. That's what culpable negligence is. You guys are going to have a verdict form. And that verdict form says, count 1, guilty of manslaughter while armed with a firearm as charged in the information. And then you have some lesser included offenses there. Now they're in there because legally they have to be. But the judge instructed you that if we have proven the highest charge, then you don't even get these two. And you definitely don't get to this. So if we have proven guilty beyond a reasonable manslaughter, beyond a reasonable doubt, then it's guilty as charged. And ladies and gentlemen, please, again, I implore you, just because he was a police officer at the time, he does not get a pass for what he did to Corey Jones. He is guilty of manslaughter while armed. And he has to be held accountable for what he did, the actions that he took that night, the life that he took that night.
count 2, guilty of attempted first-degree murder as charged, you'll see that there's a lesser of attempted second. The reason why it's attempted first, because as I explained before, those last 3, depending on what expert you believe, like I said, if you believe Dr. Nelson, that's absolutely fine. But those last 3, he doesn't get a pass. Remember, the judge said you cannot base your verdict on sympathy. Not, well, I mean, he's an officer, he probably just did the best he could. That's not standard. That's not the standard. He has to be held accountable for what he did. Not that he did the best he could. Had he done the best he could, Corey Jones would still be here. One second.
Sure.
I want you to, there's one thing that I failed to mention, and I got to mention it. I got to mention it because it's so important. In his walkthrough, he says, let me pull that out. I'm not going to play it because I don't have time to play it for you guys. But like I said, you are the judges of the facts. So if you want to hear that walkthrough again, all you got to do is ask Judge Marks when you're deliberating. And you can hear that again. Because I'm not making this up. These are his words. These are his words. Sergeant Karpinski asks him, do you remember when you discharged your weapon? You said you believed it was down there. He says, uh-huh. Sergeant Karpinski says, did you discharge it anywhere over here? Yes, I discharged it in the, and this is what I'm saying. It's like when he was running and I was going after him, I was going after him. But he wants y'all to believe that there was an imminent threat. When he was running and I was going after him, I was yelling. I was like, drop the gun, drop the gun. I'm gonna fucking kill you. Drop the gun. And I'm yelling at this guy to the top of my lungs. I'm gonna effing kill you. I'm gonna effing kill you. I'm gonna effing kill you. And he's running, and I'm chasing him. Why are you chasing him? He is running away from you. And I'm telling him, drop the gun, or I'm gonna effing kill you. And you know what? He made good on that threat. Because that's what he did. That's what he did. You don't get a pass for that. Now, what I'm going to do for you right now, ladies and gentlemen, it's going to take about, I think the animation is like is it 6 minutes long? 2 minutes? 3 minutes? I'm going to play for you an animation. And it's an animation that we put together, and it's not an evidence, okay? It's just an animation, and basically what it does, it's what we, based on the physical evidence, based on his statement, based on everything that we know and everything that we have, we put together an animation of what happened that night, okay? And it's our theory. It's what we know happened based on the evidence. So I want to play that for you now and show it to you.
That's tough.
Can I have just,
It'll-
this down and sit down.
It's okay. So we'll run it over to the other side. And when it's done, then we'll break for the 5 minutes. Go ahead, State.
Thank you for calling agency roadside assistance. This is Maddie. May I have your mobile number better assist you?
561-573-2815.
Okay, give me one moment to pull up the account. And what's your name on it?
Corey Jones. Corey Jones, Calvin.
Yeah, I see Delray details.
Yes.
Listen to his voice, calm. He's calm.
Alrighty. And what can I do for you tonight?
I need to get it sold on my phone.
And is this, mobile number with the vehicle?
Yes.
Okay. What's wrong with the vehicle?
We won't start.
Okay. And is it a four-wheel drive?
I think we will.
What's the address of the vehicle location?
I'm off the PGA, South Texas. 195.
On 95.
I-95 exit, PGA, southbound.
Okay, is there any, hold on, write southbound down. Is there any buildings, landmarks, anything like that, that I could use as a point or address? Oh my gosh. Where's Youngstown?
I'm that fucking gun right now! Hey, this is going down one, I just got one down, I just shot one person. I'm at that offense right behind Nobu, Black Hill.
You're behind the double string?
I'm on the offense, 95 southbound offense, off the Nobu. I am not coming to attention right now. And, I got one down, I got one man down.
Roger, you all right?
Yeah, good. Drop it out.
On the off-ramp, buddy.
On the offense, maybe you can use it, I'm on the contact with Monica Reeves.
You got it, buddy. Where's your radio? Where's your radio, Rod?
My radio's in the van right now, I don't have it with me. That's on the phone.
All right, stay on the phone, buddy. What's the guy look like?
Black, wearing all black dress, had a silver handgun in his right hand. I came out, I saw him come out with a handgun, I gave him command, I identified myself, and he transported me, not having to run in, I shot him. I lost contact, 65 to 28 on the SUV.
Go ahead.
There's gonna be a 428 or 286 Papa Romeo Hotel, 286 QRH.
Don't know yet. Mike, put that out now. All right, it's a 08 Hyundai 286 Papa Romeo Hotel.
Yes,
street that he's wearing a garment on.
I'm not surprised that I'm right on the offense. He ran across into the grass. Guys, right here. He ran in that direction, ran in that direction. I lost visual of him.
348, I'm on that spot, this spot, and they went on the belt rail.
Alright, he's coming around in the parking lot to the,
Saw the shell casings. Shell casings doesn't support his version of where he claims he was. Another lie. That 10 seconds between 3 and 4, it tells it all. That tells it all. Corey doesn't hear anything for 10 seconds. He's running. He's running away. He doesn't hear anything for 10 seconds. He's thinking this guy's gone. Is he still there? He turns. As soon as he turns, boom. Asking you, ladies and gentlemen, to do what you said that you would do, even if you didn't like the law, even if it didn't feel good to you. I'm asking you to do what's just. I'm asking you to do what's right. And I'm asking you to please hold this man accountable for what he did to Corey Jones.
Thank you, Ms. Ellis. Okay, jurors, you know the drill now. Still can't talk about the case. You're going to turn your pads upside down. The menus are waiting for you. You've memorized them. Let's be very punctual for everybody who's in the courtroom. We will be starting back at 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock, right on the dime. Everybody get a break. Defense, set up your podium the way you'd like it. 10 o'clock, sharp.